former President Donald Trump. The package represents a major setback for House Speaker Mike Johnson and his Republican conference, which spent the past 2 weeks demanding a longer funding bill with unrelated legislation attached requiring proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections. And several staff members have resigned from Republican Mark Robinson's campaign for North Carolina's governor's role, as old posts he allegedly wrote on a porn site upended his campaign and threatened the GOP's prospects in a key battleground state. The state Republican Party is sticking by Robinson, but GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump has distanced himself from the man he once called Martin Luther King on steroids, and Robinson was conspicuously absent at Trump's rally this weekend in Wilmington, North Carolina. Now, Trump did endorse Robinson, but he has not addressed this past week's controversy. And the former president, who has shifted his position over the years on LGBTQ issues, is planning to lead the GOP charge on gender identity if he returns to the White House. Now, he says he wants to kick providers out of Medicare and Medicaid for offering gender transition care to minors, such as hormone therapy and surgery. He also wants to pull federal funding from schools if officials suggest a child could be trapped in the wrong body. He also wants to purge anything in the federal government deemed to promote transgender identity. Now, these moves would go against the advice of leading medical groups and scientists. And a Nebraska Republican state lawmaker said today that he remains opposed to switching how the state allocates its electoral votes, effectively blocking a bid by Donald Trump and his allies to change the system in a bid for an extra electoral vote this fall. Trump allies have pushed for a special legislative session intended for the Republican-controlled legislature to change Nebraska to a winner-take-all system instead of awarding electoral votes by congressional district. And despite Donald Trump's claims, crime, including serious violent incidents like murder and rape, dropped nationally from 2022 to 2023. Now, this is according to data released by the FBI. Violent crime was down about 3% from 2022 to 2023. The most serious crimes went down significantly, and that's including murder and non-negligent manslaughter were down an estimated 11.6%. This is the largest single year deficit or decline, I should call it, in 2 decades. And at every level, the New York Police Department has failed to punish officers who have violated the rights of people stopped on the street. This is according to a new report, a failure that reaches all the way to the top of the police force. The document is the most comprehensive independent review of discipline since a landmark court decision in 2013 held that the department's use of stop and frisk violated the Constitution and ordered wide-ranging reforms, including a federal monitor. And the arrest of Sean Combs, P. Diddy, has shocked the music world. These charges included sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy. They represent a stunning reversal of fortune for the hip-hop artist who, as recently as a year ago, was feted as an industry visionary. Now, this is before a sudden series of sexual assault accusations were filed and civil lawsuits against him. This federal criminal indictment accuses him of running a criminal enterprise centered on abusing women and of using bribery, arson, kidnapping, and threats of violence to intimidate and silence victims. Sean Combs has denied the allegations and pled not guilty to the charges. He remains in detention in Brooklyn, awaiting a federal trial. We're going to talk more about that later in the show. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by 2 veterans, Dr. Carlos Hill. He is a professor at the University of Oklahoma and the author of The Murder of Emmett Till. Also joining me in this hour is Dr. Hassan Jeffries. He is also a professor, and he's at the Ohio State University. And hour two, that's the hour where we dig a little deeper, where we go behind those headlines and bring you those stories that people are talking about. Well, the story of Sean Combs being indicted and being detained in a Brooklyn jail in New York has been the talk of the last several days, if not the entire weekend. A lot of folks asking who might be next, because in a lot of ways the music industry has been spared the accountability and the criminal indictments that we've seen that have shook up both the news media world as well as the film and television world. And for decades, Sean Combs presented the image of a wealthy Black music mogul who broke business barriers, who threw lavish parties, and who even created iconic TV moments. But behind the scenes, New York federal prosecutors say was a more sinister picture, with allegations of violence, sex trafficking, and severe abuse of power. Combs was arrested a week ago today and charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, this came months after lawsuits and several allegations of sexual assault, gender violence, misconduct, and other serious illegal activity were alleged against him that, according to his victims, occurred over decades. He pled guilty to these charges on Tuesday of last week, and he asserted his rights to request bond. He asked to be bailed out, to be allowed to be out of detention while he worked on his preparation for his trial. His lawyers presented a very lengthy and detailed letter to the court asking that he be allowed to remain in his $50 million mansion in Florida, that 24-hour private security would be retained by Combs at his own expense to make sure he didn't leave that residence except for court appearances and medical appearances. Well, that elaborate attempt to have him remain outside of jail awaiting trial failed. A judge in New York denied his bail request, determining that he was a flight risk and a danger to the community. So he is in the Metropolitan Detention Center in New York and is on what some call procedural suicide watch, which is typical for high-profile clients. But this case has a lot of implications. A lot of folks who have not been named, although there is conspiracy charges. So it begs the question as to who might be in on the conspiracy. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York said the investigation is ongoing. So in hour two, I'm going to have my legal panel on to help us make sense of how do you have a conspiracy with just one person, and who might be the others that will be charged in this indictment, and what does this mean for people? There's folks, like Russell Simmons and others who have frequently come up in conversations about music executives who have escaped both criminal accountability and in some cases even civil lawsuits. Is this the reckoning, the Me Too reckoning for the music industry that we saw some years ago in the film and television industry? So make sure you stick around if you have questions about what is P. Diddy being charged for. His lawyers are saying they have talked to some of these witnesses, and they say these freak-offs that we heard about from the district attorney or from the Southern District U.S. Attorney were all consensual. What does the word consensual mean in the context of a federal racketeering charge? All of that in hour two. But before I bring on my guest, here's what I'm thinking about in real time. Donald Trump, despite dragging women's reproductive rights back 5 decades, being adjudicated to be a rapist who also defamed his victim, despite facing nearly 24 other sexual assault allegations. We should not ever forget Donald Trump has been the subject of at least 24 of those allegations, somewhat similar to what Sean Combs has been accused of. And despite paying for all of that with a huge gender gap in the polls, Donald Trump he made a promise on his social media site over the weekend to rescue poor, depressed, and unhappy women who he says seem inclined to elect the first woman president. I don't know. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump have a way with words when it comes to women. So Donald Trump now calls us poor, depressed, and unhappy women. J.D. Vance likes to talk about women without children also as being pretty poor and pretty pathetic. Catless cat women, he likes to call them. So this is what Donald Trump posted on his social media site on Friday night in all caps. Women are poorer than they were 4 years ago, are less healthy than they were 4 years ago, are less safe on the streets than they were 4 years ago, are more depressed and unhappy than they were 4 years ago, and are less optimistic and confident in the future than they were 4 years ago. Well, guess what? He goes on to say, I will fix it. I will fix all of that. And fast and at long last, this national nightmare, he calls it, will be over. Women will be happy. We will be healthy. We will be confident and free. He says, you will no longer be thinking about abortion because it is now where it always had to be, with the states and a vote of the people. Wow. That's what Donald Trump is promising women. That probably has a whole lot to do with him knowing that the latest poll shows that Vice President Kamala Harris maintains a solid lead with female voters, 53% to 41%. I don't even know who those 41% of women are that could even be thinking about voting for someone who calls us depressed, who calls us unhappy, who calls us poor, and who then says that only he can fix it. I don't know where Donald Trump gets this from. I don't know what women he has in his life, why he thinks any woman is sitting around waiting for some man to make us happy, to make us feel good about ourselves, to make us healthy, and to make us more confident. Donald Trump at this point is so desperate, and some of the stuff he says is so ridiculous as it doesn't even merit being repeated. But I just want to make sure, if there are any women out there who are feeling happy, energized, confident, healthy, and quite wealthy, feeling quite wealthy, no matter how much money you have, then obviously Donald Trump is not your candidate, because he does not see you in that way. He does not see you in your glory. He does not see you in all of your fabulousness as Kamala Harris does. And I don't know, he did not get the memo that it was, I don't know, been 50 years plus since any woman I know has been sitting around waiting for a man to rescue her. We are doing great, Donald Trump. That's why Kamala Harris, a female, is leading you, is kicking your butt in all these polls, despite what the New York Times said today. And women all over this country are using our voices and using our votes. And you know that we are voting against you. And I know that is making you very, very, very unhappy, depressed, and maybe unhealthy. And, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but I think everything that Donald Trump posted about women is him projecting, because that's how he's feeling in this moment as this Black woman is kicking his butt. So women, keep being healthy, happy, and keep doing what we're doing, because Donald Trump is watching and he is paying very close attention to how well we are doing and are going to continue to do under our first female president. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king.
Febreze Fabric Talk. Hey, it's me, your couch. Today's my favorite day of the week, Febreze Fabric Spray Day. The occasional deep cleans are nice, but in between, I'm needing a refresh. Ooh, here she comes with the Febreze Fabric Spray. Oh yeah, spritz them armrests. Don't be shy. Nothing like a good spray down to get me smelling so fresh and clean. Don't forget my back. Nice. Febreze Fabric Spray. It's just that easy. Now we can both breathe happy. Febreze. La 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 la.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We're back, and Dr. Carlos Hill and Dr. Hassan Jeffries are joining me in this hour. And in hour two, my legal panel will be with me, and we will be breaking down that federal indictment that was filed a week ago today against Sean Diddy Combs that talks about a criminal enterprise that was run by Combs, but no one else was identified in the indictment. So we're going to help you make sense of that. How can you have a conspiracy and a criminal enterprise when there's only one defendant name? So make sure you stick around for hour two. But, Dr. Hill, I read that post by Donald Trump about women, kind of tongue in cheek, but is that just a generation gap because Donald Trump is almost 80 years old that he would write a despicable statement like that that's so anachronistic, so just out of touch with where we are today, to say that women are less healthy, that we are poor, that we're depressed, that we're less confident and optimistic, and that one man can fix all of our problems, and that one man is him. Does he really have that low of a regard for women and our intellect?
I think he actually does, Areva, and there's a segment of his base that does as well. And as long, honestly, as Donald Trump continues to pander to that segment, that anti-woman segment, as well as the anti-black segment, that segment that really wants this country to be an all-white country and controlled by white people, I think when he speaks directly to them, he loses voters, the swing voters that we always talk about, but he deepens his support of his base in those segments. So it serves him. It's that solid base that he has, but I think it hurts him, especially with women, which you've already talked about, how the 41% of women that we don't know why, but nonetheless, the majority of women aren't going to vote for him, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, Doctor, I had, I'll let you jump into here, Dr. Jeffries. I had an African-American friend of mine, Black woman, good friends with. She's puzzled by how close this race is because she has seen and heard about posts like this and cannot imagine that there are any, what I'll call modern day women. I just mean any woman that's breathing air today in 2024 that would support someone that makes that kind of misogynistic statement. And I was trying to explain to her that there are single issue voters and there are religious people in the Black community in particular who are so anti-abortion that they are willing to ignore these kinds of comments. They're willing to ignore racist comments. They're willing to ignore pretty much everything Trump does because they are so dead set on just having a president that will support their one issue. And for many African Americans, religious ones in particular, that issue is abortion. Do you think, what do you say to that voter? Because, that is a reality, because I can't believe that any other enlightened female would be supporting a man that's telling her, like Donald Trump is telling all of us women, that he can make our lives happy and he can make us healthy and confident and optimistic again. So what do you say to that one issue voter who's just so set on, eliminating the rights for women to choose around abortion? Do we have Professor Jeffries here? I know we have him. Oh, he dropped off. So I'm going to let you, while we get his audio back on, Dr. Hill, jump in on that. That one issue voter is probably, I think, the reason we are still with 41% of women voting for Trump.
Absolutely. I think that you're right. If there are some single issue voters, Black voters who perhaps are voting family values, Black voters who believe Trump is a better representative of that because he's a Republican. But if you just look at Trump's family and how his members of his family have talked about him, the things that he has done, you would just reading I don't remember the title of the latest tell-all book, but it was written by a family member detailing, documenting the ways in which he has been despicable to members of his family. Anyone who is going to die on the hill that Trump represents family values, go ahead, because even members of his family would say different. But again, you're right. These single issue voters believe that somehow Donald Trump represents the family in some sort of delusion, when in reality, we know that's far, far, far from the case.
So it's easy to, I think, Professor Hassan, I think we have him back. Professor Hassan Jeffries is joining us audio only. When you get to lawyers, you get to doctors, when you get to people who are, advanced degrees, and they read something like this post that I read, how can they reconcile voting for Donald Trump when he makes that kind of statement?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head a second ago when you said it's the single issue. I mean, you have those who believe no matter what, that the single issue that they're committed to, and for many, it's the question of abortion rights, or rather preventing abortion at all costs, that is the end all be all, no matter what. I mean, we're seeing that play out, not just with Donald Trump, but also in North Carolina with the Republican governor, the gubernatorial nominee there, and all the madness, and you will still have hundreds of thousands of people who will vote for them. So, sometimes you have folk who are less concerned about the bigger picture, and they get so deeply concerned in that one issue that no matter what happens, they're just simply blind to it, and they'll stick with the person regardless of what he or she will say.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that in the Mark Robinson case. Professor Hill, Mark Robinson, his own party called for him to step aside. Donald Trump obviously does not want to be on a stage with him ever again. J.D. Vance doesn't want to be on the stage with him. He showed up, I think, at some bakery this morning trying to put on a good face like he's still in this campaign. But quietly and not so quietly, Republicans are very worried that he is going to bring down the ticket in North Carolina, that he could cause them to lose their supermajority in the state house, that he could cause Kamala Harris and the Democrats to win a state that had been pretty much guaranteed for Donald Trump. And it's his arrogance that won't let him step aside. We saw this with Herschel Walker. We've seen characters and candidates like Mark Robinson. Again, it seems like white Republicans have they have a theme for these kinds of candidates, these very flawed African-American men, and they use them to try to say to their white base, we're not racist. We believe in inclusion. Look, we have a Herschel Walker. Look, we have a Mark Robinson. And these are candidates, if you just, forget about their race, they are not qualified to be in office. It has nothing to do with their race, and no one would pick them. But yet Republicans keep coming up short, and they do come up short with these candidates. They have been liabilities. They get through a primary because that MAGA base votes for them in the primary. Then they get to the general election where you have independents, you have, you have less conservative Republicans who just will not vote for these candidates. Just they keep doing it over and over and over again. When we come forward, we're going to get both of your takes on what might this mean for Democrats in North Carolina, given how badly wounded Mark Robinson is, as he is literally limping to Election Day. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
Right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is looking for alternatives to the gunshot detection system ShotSpotter. The mayor, who is Black, announced that a request for information has been issued to gather recommendations on reliable and efficient forms of first responder technology. The Chicago Police Department stopped using ShotSpotter after the city's contract with its parent company expired. The city council voted last week to approve an ordinance giving Police Superintendent Larry Snelling the power to sign a new contract with ShotSpotter. However, Johnson said he would veto it. Former President Trump is returning to Georgia. He's planning a campaign event in Savannah on Tuesday. He plans to deliver remarks on the tax code and manufacturing at the Johnny Mercer Theater. This comes after Vice President Kamala Harris visited Georgia earlier this month to deliver remarks on abortion rights. Polls are showing an extremely tight race in Georgia between Trump and Harris. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Be advised, in Boyle Heights, we have a crash blocking lanes of the 10 east at Highway 60 and stop traffic over an hour from 20th Street. Trabuco Canyon has an animal blocking lanes, looks like a deer, laying on Live Oak Canyon Road, northbound at Monastery. In South LA, watch for an accident on the right shoulder with a 15-minute backup from Redondo Beach Boulevard, back on the 110 North after Manchester Avenue. Arleta's 5 North at Osborne Street, expected 15-minute backup from Glen Oaks as an accident's on the right shoulder.
This National Recovery Month, start your recovery journey. Explore and choose a proven addiction treatment option that's right for you at choosechangeca.org. Recovery starts today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A little more info on Rams backup wide receiver Xavier Smith, the undrafted rookie from HBCU Florida A&M. Smith was one of the stars in Sunday's win over the 49ers. When Smith had the crucial 37-yard punt return with a minute left, it was the first time he touched the ball in an NFL regular season game. Smith was on the Rams practice squad until Saturday. He was promoted for Sunday's game because of the Rams' injury issues at wide receiver. With the game tied at 24 and the Rams needing field position, Rams coach Sean McVay made a surprise decision to send out Smith to return the 49ers punt. Smith's return set up the Rams' game-winning field goal with 2 seconds left. Smith is one of 3 Florida A&M players on an active NFL roster. Isaiah Land is a defensive end with the Indianapolis Colts, and Marquise Bell is a defensive back with the Dallas Cowboys. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black.
Keep following the leader.
Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelenos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV. Black Women for Wellness and Stand LA are standing up against harmful oil drilling in South Los Angeles. Our Bad Neighbors campaign exposes the serious health risks of drilling in our neighborhoods. You've seen the billboards, posters, and coffee sleeves around South LA. Now join the movement to protect our health, our families, and our future.
Visit bwwla.org/no-drilling to learn more and get involved. That's bwwla.org/no-drilling.
Hey, LA residents, it's planting season and the perfect time to get shade trees growing around your home. LADWP and City Plants are giving every resident up to 7 free trees. That's right, 7 free trees delivered right to your door. Trees are great for the environment, help improve air quality, and can help you save on your bill when you use less air conditioning to stay cool indoors. Learn more at ladwp.com/free trees. That's ladwp.com/free trees.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
We're back, and in this hour, we are tackling today's breaking and trending news with Dr. Carlos Hill, author of The Murder of Emmett Till and professor at the University of Oklahoma, and Dr. Hassan Jeffries, a professor of history at Ohio State University. And in hour two, we're going to go deep on that indictment against Sean Combs that was filed last Monday. Well, it wasn't filed, but he was indicted and arrested essentially last Monday. And then Tuesday, he showed up in a New York federal court and pled not guilty. He had hoped to be released on bail. He was willing to put up a $50 million bail amount, but the judge said no. And even after filing an appeal, he was forced to be retained. And by all indication, he will remain in jail awaiting his trial. So we're going to talk to a criminal defense attorney and criminal prosecutor about what this indictment means, not just for Sean Combs, but others who may be later indicted, because this is a conspiracy case and conspiracies involve more than one person, although there's only one defendant named in this initial indictment. So make sure you stick around for hour two. Dr. Hill, we're talking about, before the break, Mark Robinson, this very, very flawed lieutenant governor who's running for governor of North Carolina. The Trump team has distanced themselves from him, even though Trump at one point called him Martin Luther King on steroids. Why do Republicans have this penchant for attracting these very, very flawed candidates, in some cases Black candidates, and then have to do what they've done in the case of Mark Robinson? Mark Robinson hopefully will go down defeated, badly defeated, but seemingly nothing learned from these candidates who have such a horrible track record. I mean, the receipts on Mark Robinson have been known forever, although some new information was uncovered last week, but pretty much everyone knew that he was a pretty despicable human being. What do you make of that, Professor Hill?
Unmute.
I'm so sorry, Areva. I was muted. What we see here is we don't see something tragic in the sense that they keep making mistakes. This is truly a strategy. This is a tried and tested strategy even for them. What they have in Mark Robinson is a Black race baiter, right? He called himself a Black Nazi, right? And so because of that, when Mark Robinson talks, he's like a Black Donald Trump, right? There's a reason why they're not distancing themselves from him. They're not they're distancing themselves from him, but not condemning him because he's too useful. He's a Black man who potentially could be governor, validating Donald Trump's racist policies that are anti-Black anti-diversity, anti-women, anti-everything. And they want us to embrace him or understand him as what they say, MLK on steroids. They want us to believe that as long as there are votes to tally, that he's some sort of reincarnation of Dr. King, and that he supports Donald Trump. It's so useful for Donald Trump in this election, this tight election, to be able to say that Black people support him, even if it's only Mark Robinson.
Yeah, Professor Jeffries, this guy is not going to drop out. His ego won't let him drop out of the race, but hopefully he's going to pull the ticket down in North Carolina. And as Dr. Hill said, this is a close race. This is a nail biter. It's going to be so. There's a big debate going on today. New York Times polls have Trump up in some of the key battleground states like Arizona. Some folks online, Simon Rosenberg to be one, saying that don't believe these polls, that Kamala Harris has consistently proven that she's ahead by 3 or 4 points. But we seem to be in this war of polling. And I think what we all know is that the polls are tight. But what do you make of this? Does Mark Robinson give Democrats a better chance in North Carolina? And are you believing that Donald Trump is pulling ahead, that he's having a better week this week, as the New York Times would have us believe?
Yeah, I'm doubtful that either one of them actually is pulling ahead, but I would imagine.
Yeah, I think we're still having some technical difficulties with Professor Jeffries' audio. What do you make while we continue to work on Robert? Let's continue to work on his audio. Professor Hill, does Mark Robinson win the election for Kamala Harris in North Carolina?
Unmute.
I think we're having some. This is one of those days we're having some technical
Areva,
issues. Yeah, just don't mute yourself. Just stay with me. We don't hear you saying.
Areva, I'm just gonna stay with you. But I think Mark Robinson, as crazy as this is gonna sound, has a chance as long as Donald Trump and the Republicans continue to talk about distancing themselves from him rather than condemning him outright, because there's enough of a mood within the party, amongst the party faithful, even those who support Donald Trump, that even Mark Robinson, right, is a bit far. But the problem with it all is that in condemning Mark Robinson, you're also condemning Donald Trump, because he's doing the same damn thing. And so he's making these same kind of fallacious statements about Kamala Harris and everything else, right? And so condemning Mark Robinson, you're condemning Trump. And so they're in this really tough spot. But if this continues to be a liability, if this continues to be a story in the cycle over this week and next, you will see some more strident condemnations.
Yeah, speaking of what we've seen Mark Robinson does, which is so Donald Trump 2.0, which is makes fallacious statements, make false statements, and as much as what I'll call the sane media tries to bat back and tries to disabuse folks of that disinformation. There's a story over the weekend involving pop icon Janet Jackson, Professor Hill, where apparently she was giving an interview to The Guardian, and that interview was published on Saturday, and she was out promoting her European tour, her tour stops, and she was asked about Kamala Harris, and apparently she made some statement reflective of the Republican talking points that she heard she wasn't Black. She went further and says she heard her father was in fact white. And then there was this statement that was issued by someone who purported to be her manager, saying that she was making an apology, that she was misinformed, that she hadn't been following the news for the last couple of days, and that she had a better understanding now. Then there was another statement issued that said, no, the person that made that statement was not her manager, that her manager is indeed her brother, Randy Jackson. And we know that the Jackson family right now is in mourning because they just lost their brother, Tito. So all this back and forth, and of course, we haven't been able to get any direct statement out of Janet Jackson or Randy Jackson, or perhaps someone, in the family that would be able to clear this up. But a lot of people troubled by Janet Jackson, particularly given how the Black community has supported her family, supported her music, and that she would be parroting one of these Republican talking points, saying that she heard that Kamala Harris is not Black. When we come forward, I want to get your take on this. Does this matter? Does someone like Janet Jackson has any relevance when we think about this election coming up and who people might be following? She's entitled to say what she says, but might this not only matter in terms of the election, but what could this mean in terms of her own brand? She's promoting a concert tour, so presumably she wants people to attend. We're talking about Janet Jackson when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is 60.
And that chill in the air means one thing. It's truck season!
Just 5 more minutes.
No snoozing. You've got so much to do. So do it all in a Chevy Colorado or Silverado, including the HD or class-leading 440-mile range of the Silverado EV.
Wait, what? Are you talking?
Yes! Picture it. Work, play, hauling gear, off-roading. A Chevy truck can take whatever you can throw at it, including tailgating in an actual tailgate!
I mean, homecoming is just around the corner. Oh, and showing up in a new truck.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Get things done and look good doing it.
Okay, I'm up. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Without offering me a ride? That's cold.
Head to your local Chevy dealer and get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 and Colorado pickups when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 24.5%. Plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available, at least in some of the offers. Taking retail delivery by 9/30/24.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community, educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit ca-smp-volunteer.org.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion.
We aim to be a thermostat,
transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Dia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Dia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Dia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.diachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We're back with Dr. Carlos Hill. He's professor at the University of Oklahoma and the author of The Murder of Emmett Till. Dr. Hassan Jeffries was with us, but he was having some technical difficulties. I want to thank him for spending some time with us and look forward to having him back on the show. In hour 2, we're going to be going deep on that indictment against Sean Combs. What does it mean? What's a criminal enterprise? And who else is likely to be ensnarled in the criminal trouble that Sean Combs finds himself in. But Dr. Hill, over the weekend, folks were all over the internet talking about this Janet Jackson interview she gave to the Guardian newspaper as she was out promoting her latest tours and European stops, and apparently asked about Kamala Harris. And she said that Janet Jackson said she heard that VP Harris is not black, went further and saying she heard her father was white. We know these are Donald Trump and Republican talking points. A lot of folks not too pleased with the singer. And then we get this, what appears to be this fake apology, and haven't been able to hear much from Janet or her family or her manager, who her family says is really Randy Jackson, because they're mourning the death of their brother, Tito Jackson. What do you make of all of the hoopla over Janet Jackson's repeating these talking points?
Areva is troubling, but I think it's something that isn't going to really impact the vote or black voters and their opinions of Kamala. I really think this is fringe, right? And what's so sad about it is, Janet Jackson is someone who is revered in black culture because she's a part of the Jackson family. And, she, in her own right, has made history as an entertainer, as a musician. And so to hear these, as black people have supported Michael Jackson and the family over all these years, it's really hurtful to hear, right, her at this moment where there's so much involved, right? The stakes couldn't be higher, when she has a moment to support a black woman, right? She chooses to cast doubt on whether she's a black woman at all, similar to what Donald Trump has said in recent months about whether, she's only recently wanted to claim her blackness. She's only done that in the run up to the election, or since she's been a politician where she could basically get something from it. That, for Janet Jackson to be a credible black person saying those things, that's a worrying trend, but I think it's ultimately fringe and it won't determine how black people vote.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that she would go there and say, well, I heard she's not black. Like that would impact her supporting her. She is a woman. Janet Jackson has, been open about some trauma she's experienced in certain relationships with men. So you would think she could find some camaraderie, right? Some, something in common with a woman who's running for an office, who she would have to imagine has suffered all kinds of, or has been the subject of all kinds of misogyny and sexism, which Janet, we know, has suffered in her own career. So it's just kind of a curious statement. I said on the program earlier today, maybe, Janet Jackson has never been, in my eyes, someone that's political. She's not typically out front like Kerry Washington or John Legend or others that we can think of who've always been very active politically. They grew up Jehovah's Witness. We know that. And we know a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses don't vote, don't participate in electoral politics. So, it could be her lack of just knowledge about this election, although it's kind of hard. I'm trying to give her a pass because presumably she is grieving, the death of her brother. But it is hurtful, and it's curious to me. Like you could just say, I'm supporting her, not supporting. It doesn't matter because Kamala Harris hasn't said support me because I'm black. So the issue of her race didn't really even have to come up in the conversation. So it's kind of odd that it even did.
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate. And I know that it's not truly representative of their legacy, the legacy that they've built, the legacy that they've tried to maintain over these years. And because, as you mentioned, she doesn't have a track record of really being politically active, even making political statements. It's really curious, odd, weird, and off-putting for her to do so now, and for her to seemingly be in support of talking points made by Donald Trump and the like. It really causes us to question. But I think, again, Areva, this statement won't, and others like it, won't matter, because I think most Black people, Black Americans, that is, truly believe that Kamala Harris has a Black identity and a Black heritage.
No doubt about that. I want to ask you about some other internet stuff that happened. I didn't have a chance to get your perspective as a Black male that's a member of the Academy. I don't know. I'm sure you saw the debate that was going on online involving Michael Eric Dyson, Nancy Mace, the congresswoman from South Carolina, and Michael Eric Dyson and some others had been on a CNN program. They had some heated discussion about the pronunciation of Kamala's name. Apparently got a little heated, but there was a picture taken of them together. Nancy Mace goes to a congressional meeting or hearing and says she wants to put on the record a text message sent to her by Michael Eric Dyson where she goes on to accuse him of hitting on her. She reads the text message into the record. She tells us it has a kissy face emoji. Michael Eric Dyson hits back and says, basically, no way, Jose, no uncertain terms was I hitting on her. He tries to explain it, but he uses the word gorgeous or gorgeousness in this text. And there's this big debate online about Black men and, one, kissing up to her. Some people thought he was, why are you kissing up to this woman who is, people called her all kinds of things, including being a racist, but more importantly, just decorum in texting and someone of Michael Eric Dyson's stature using that language. And then he went on to, post Instagram showing that he used gorgeousness or the word gorgeous in communicating with lots of women, that it was not a term meant to convey any kind of, admiration for her beyond that as a colleague. What do you make of that? I'm sure you saw some of that online.
Areva, to be very honest, I didn't catch it all, but I don't need to catch it all, in part because some of these allegations of sexual harassment has kind of followed or dogged Professor Dyson. This is not me saying in any way they are true, but this is a narrative that has kind of followed. But to the larger point, men in power, Black men in power, using their power in ways that harass, in ways that intimidate, in ways that leverage for some sort of sexual payoff, return, right? That I think whether it's P. Diddy, whether it's Harvey Weinstein, whether it's Jeffrey Epstein, right? We tend to sort of focus in on the individual, and we don't see the culture that is around them, that creates it, and also enables it. And so I think for me, yes, these are things that we should be talking, that we should be holding Brother Dyson accountable for. But at the same time, it's a part of this larger culture that we tend not to interrogate as much as we do the individuals. But again, I did not follow this debate. Areva, can you tell me though, what for you in this debate was most disturbing in how Brother Dyson dealt with this?
Well, I'm a big fan of Michael Eric Dyson. I've actually invited him to speak for my nonprofit a couple of years ago. I followed his work. I think it was the emotional intelligence piece. I don't know his heart. I don't know if he was hitting on the woman or not. If he says he wasn't, I'm going to believe him because I have no reason not to. And Nancy Mace definitely is not, some pillar of integrity that I would trust her on anything. I just think in this environment, and as a civil rights lawyer, as an employment lawyer, as a lawyer that deals with sexual harassment, I just think people need to be careful. Words have power. And I don't think that in a professional setting, sending someone a text where you use the word gorgeousness and a kissy face, it can easily be misunderstood and interpreted in the way that she said she interpreted it. And I don't know, again, if she really did or she was just trying to have her, got you moment. But I just tell my clients and I tell people that I advise, just think carefully about what you say. It doesn't mean you can't give a woman a compliment. Can't doesn't mean you can't say, oh, I like your hair, or oh, I like your outfit, or oh, it looks like, you know, you've been working out or you lost some weight. You know, there's still comments like that that don't get near the line. But you know, when you start using words like beautiful and gorgeous, you know, to women that are not your mother, your daughter, your wife, or your girlfriend, you probably are too close to the line. And you put yourself in a position where you're vulnerable to these kinds of attacks. And the defense that I use it all the time is not a good defense, because if you're using it all the time, it just means that you really need to reevaluate how you're communicating. And in this environment, and you know, some people think it's gone too far. I think we are right where we need to be, because we know that in many instances, those kind of what people claim are innocuous compliments go from a compliment to a rubbing of a shoulder, to a pat on the back, to a pat on the behind, you know, to groping. So I've seen that all too often. And I just know too many men that just put themselves in the position of their daughters and women that they love and say, I wouldn't want someone saying this to my daughter, my girlfriend, or my wife. So I'm not going to say it to someone else's daughter, girlfriend, or wife. So I think that's the teachable moment for it. If you are a man and you're in a professional environment and you have doubts, just ask yourself, you know, would you want some man sending this to my daughter or my wife or my mother? And if the answer is no, then don't do it yourself. All right, we're out of time. Give you something to think about. Go look up this whole debate online. Dr. Hill, thank you as usual for being with me today and helping us break down today's trending news. You may have some comments about this. Feel free to post it online to me, send it to me in a DM, but I'd love to get your take as a member of the Academy. When we come forward, we're going to be breaking down that indictment against Sean Combs with our legal experts right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
Thank you, Areva.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All righty.